What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. In today's video, I wanted to do that video that I've been talking about regarding rosters within MLB The Show 22. I just want to voice some of my opinions on the rosters that were created for us in MLB The Show 22. Like I mentioned in my review and a couple of the other videos that I've done so far, they did a pretty solid job with including MLB prospects in the game for most of the MLB teams. Now, there are some major prospects that are missing within these systems within the game, and we could go into various different examples. There are quite a few from the Pirates system that are missing, but nonetheless, it's kind of tough for them to get every single prospect into the game whenever you consider that they have to go to AAA, AA, and single A rosters, and the game kind of limits you as to how many players you can actually have within the roster system within the game, and you have to prioritize who are the most important prospects in the game because you only get 26 MLB players, 26 AAA, 26 AA, and 15 single A. What they really need to do is they actually need to develop the single A portion of the roster within this game. What they need to do is they need to make a more realistic impact on the game in terms of single A within MLB The Show, because that is one of the major issues that I think causes them to not potentially have every single player out there, because they only go and grab a certain number of players when there are actually more out there that are on any given team's roster. The interesting thing here is whenever you actually add up the totals for MLB, you get a total of 93 players within the organization. That's 26, 26, 26, and 15. But according to a couple of different sources, you can have well above that within a major league system. When I actually go out there and take a look at how many players you can actually have on your roster within these varying different segments of your minor league system within the MLB, you can have 28 players on your AAA roster, 28 players on your AA roster, 30 high A ball players, 30 single A ball players, and 35 international rookies. So you actually get far more players that you have access to in real life that you don't have access to in the game. And so all of that is to say that they're doing the best that they can, I think, with the roster size that they have. They need to edit the roster size to accurately match what the rules are out there in MLB baseball, because clearly there are a lot of prospects that people want within the game that are missing within the game because MLB The Show developers, San Diego Studios, went out and found 93 of the top prospects for the team, or top players for the team, and put those players in. But that doesn't include the potential 150 plus players beyond that. It can be within a baseball team's organization, and that's not, like I said, factored into MLB The Show. So with all that being said, we need to fix the roster size within the game, especially within the minor leagues. And we need to put in a realistic single A system because, as I mentioned there is quote unquote high A ball and then there's single A ball. And those have two full rosters in and of themselves. And we're only getting 15 single A players within the game. That would add a new dynamic and allow them to probably include the players that are missing from the roster. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and talk about the actual roster itself and some of the issues that I propose are going on with the roster here. One of the major issues that I have are the mismatched or mixed match ratings, however you want to say it. I know that some of these guys have been called up or called down, but generally speaking, you would think that the highest rated players on the roster would be the MLB players, the next to highest rated players would be the AAA players, and then after that would be the AA players. However, you actually get some pretty odd results going on here because you have players here that have never been any higher than AA baseball being rated higher than an MLB level player. And this happens pretty consistently across the roster. You can take a look at various MLB level players that are rated so low that they are below minor league prospects. And I get it that some of those players in the minor leagues have the potential and are likely to come up and take roster spots from those MLB MLB level players, and those MLB level players are replacement type players that really aren't that good to begin with, but nonetheless it messes with franchise mode, and it really does not seem all that logical for some minor league prospects that have never been in the MLB before to hold a higher overall rating than a player that is currently in the MLB and will be on the opening day roster for an MLB team. You know, we take a look at Yoshitomo Tsutsugo, who actually played pretty well for the Pittsburgh Pirates last year. He's probably going to be on the opening day roster for the Pirates this year. He only sports a 64 overall rating, and I know position by position things go a little bit different, but we have what, 6 prospects at second base that are rated higher than Yoshitomo Tsutsugo. It just does not actually make that much logical sense. I know that they can be intermingled, and you might have a higher rated player down in AA, you might have a lower rated player up in AAA, but nonetheless it should be a general basis of understanding that MLB level players are at a certain minimum. Now, you can have high rated prospects on teams, for example, that are stacked. You know, some of the prospects within the Dodgers system, for example, are going to be very high rated players. You're going to have monster prospects within these systems that would start on a lot of other MLB teams, but because of how stacked the major league roster already is, you get higher overall prospects in those systems, and that logically makes sense, but we have to be consistent with that across all teams, and the roster is not consistent in applying that logic. But beyond that, I also want to talk about the actual potentials that are given to these players, because that's one of the biggest issues. And I mentioned in my other videos that giving a majority of the players on the roster D potential does not make sense. On the Pittsburgh Pirates roster, who have a very good farm system, more than 50% of the players on the roster have been given D potential, which, like I said, doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because when you actually get into a franchise mode, those players are not all going to reach their max potential. So giving every single player 70 to 75 as a baseline of potential makes a ton of logical sense, in my opinion, because you're only going to actually get a handful of players that perform really well and outperform their competition in order to develop in a manner that is going to see them see their max overall or their max potential. It just does not happen that often with players within franchise mode that they see their max dev, and in my personal opinion, it's more realistic to give them a max potential. And I know that MLB teams fill their system with players that have very little chance of ever making a major league roster, but nonetheless, they still have a chance, and you have to represent that in their rating. In order for that player to have a chance, they should have a pretty decent potential rating. And I'm not saying to give them high 70s, I'm not saying to give them 80s, I'm saying to give them a low C grade as a baseline for your young prospects so that you can see that potential. And if they do play really well, then maybe they will eventually contribute to the MLB team, but most players are going to flounder in the system anyway, and regardless of having a 75 potential, they're never going to get above a 70 overall. We have to keep that in mind. So let's go ahead and take a look at a few specific players. Some of the ones that bother me are very clear examples with the Pittsburgh Pirates here. Taj Thomas, who is widely regarded as one of the Pirates' top pitching prospects, is 22 years old, a 62 overall. He's given a AA grade right now, or he's in AA, I should say, and he's given D potential. Let's go ahead in and actually take a look at this player and what his actual potential rating is. So he's only given a potential rating of a 65, which again doesn't make a whole lot of sense for a player that is in the Pirates' top prospect list. He deserves a higher potential rating than that. But let's go ahead and look at my favorite example here. Cody Bolton, who I was just reading an article on and is widely regarded as one of the Pirates' top pitching prospects, is only given a 59 overall grade, which is fine because he missed a couple of seasons due to COVID and a shoulder injury, but nonetheless, he is given a D potential. But let's actually go ahead and take a look at that. Remember, he's a 59 overall player. Whenever we actually take a look at his potential, he's given 53 potential. which doesn't make sense for a player that's a 59 overall. What they're essentially saying is that this player is inevitably going to go down in overall, and he's never going to progress as a player, which again makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But we can go ahead even one step further and take a look at the fact that he is one of the Pirates' top pitching prospects, and they have high grades on him. A lot of people have high grades on him, and he is potentially going to actually help out the major league team at some point in the next few years. It doesn't make sense for him to have a 53. All I'm asking is, at a minimum, you give him a low 70s potential grade in order to really project out that potential future of him helping out the MLB team. I'm not even asking for him to get B potential or A potential or anything like that. And to avoid rambling on and on, I could pick out example after example here. I'm going to cut them a little bit of slack. I would be willing to bet that they didn't go to the depths of doing detailed research on every single team and every single roster, and that's okay. I'm happy with the fact that they at least have these players within the game, because I can go in and modify their overalls and potentials to align with where they're actually at within the system and what their potential outlook actually looks like. However, I did want to get these feelings off my chest so that you guys know where I'm coming from whenever I'm modifying these rosters, and at times I may make negative comments about the roster system with potential and overall and how these players are listed. And if anybody out there at Sony or San Diego Studios is watching this video, guys, I don't know how this process works, but open up a position for a ratings adjuster. Bring me in as a ratings adjuster, and I'll do this as a job, adjusting these ratings, doing the research. All you have to do is go through Google research. All you have to do is cross-reference a couple of different sites, from MLB.com to the actual organization sites to varying professional opinions, and you can very quickly gauge what is going on with these players within the system, who should be on the roster, who are the 93 most important players to be on the roster, and what should they be graded at. So nonetheless, I just wanted to talk about this topic, and you guys are free to disagree with me down in the comment section. Please leave a comment down below with what your thoughts are. Are there players on your favorite team that are missing from the roster, or are severely underrated or overrated in terms of their overall or potential? What do you guys think about the roster within MLB The Show 22? And give me all that feedback down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed this topic of conversation. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel as well. And like I said, comment down below. As always, I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you have a good one.